In this video, I'm going to show you how to get an NPC to wander around the screen randomly. This is a little bit complicated because how you want that NPC to move around and where exactly you want them to move around is going to vary from project to project. So, for example, maybe we have a deer that wanders around in the forest, but we don't ever really want it to go over to the river, or we don't want it to go up trees or something like that. So there's that to deal with. And then there's also, how often do we want the NPC to move? Do we want it to move sort of randomly, like roll a dice, and if it comes up 0 or 1, move the NPC, or do it every 3 turns or something? Again, that kind of comes down to your particular project, but I can at least kind of, get you going on how to do something like that. So let's pop back over to Lantern. And I have that project imported, and I've added an object called deer, and let's put the deer in the forest. And well, that's interesting. If we put the deer in off screen and told it to wander randomly, it would actually end up, would pop into the world, who knows where. So let's make, let's talk about another thing. We want to handle the deer moving in an event. So an event is going to make the deer move. Like, events run every turn. However, we want to minimize the complexity of this project. We want to take our lots of code and break it up into modules. And those modules are functions. Functions are the building blocks of our program. So what we're going to do, I'm going to make a function first, and I'm going to call it like make deer, or deer wanders or something. Deer wanders. There we go. And let's right click in the window here, and I'm going to add a snippet, one of these things, for NPC movement. Make an NPC move to a random adjacent room. And which object is the NPC? And that's the deer, and we'll click OK. All right, so let's take a look at how this works. So there are, 10 locations that you could go to from any room. You've got north, south, east, west, and then you've got northeast, southeast. Maybe you have 12, up, down, in, out. We need to do, what we need to do is look at each one of those possibilities and see if it's a valid move. If it's a valid move, we're going to put it in a list. So Lantern does support arrays. You can see that we have some arrays over here, and they have 10 slots for the 10 directions we can go in. So this is probably, we're only using one of these. One of these is left over from a previous attempt at this. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, can we go north? Cool, we can go north. We're going to stick that in slot 0 and add 1 to our slot number. And then, okay, can we go south? No. Okay, skip that. How about, can we go east? Sure. Put that room number in slot 1 and then add 1 to our slot number. So our slot number is called an index, and we may not use this entire array, but at least we need to have, for all the, if we have 12 or 10 possible directions we could go, we probably want 10 slots. So we've got, we have to have, build a list of the rooms we could move to, and then randomly pick one out of that list. So the NPC move count, that's how many, I think that's how many possible rooms we have that are valid to go to. So let's take a look at our function again. So what this is doing is, NPC move count is in fact our index. So we set it to 0. Can we go north? Okay, put the north room in slot 0. Add 1 to the slot number. Can we go south? If we can go south, put that room in the list and add 1 to the slot number. Now, in Lantern, you're limited to 128 rooms and objects. Anything greater than that is an indicator of an error code, like a "you can't go that way" message. So that's what this negative. That's why it's less than 127. That means it's a valid room that you can move to. So we have to look at all of those things, all those possibilities, and then we're going to generate a random number between 0 and however many valid moves we found. Pick one of those, pick that element out of our list, and put the NPC there. So I know that's kind of, that's a lot. That's a lot. All right. But just keep in mind, this is going to randomly move an NPC to a valid adjacent room, and it's not going to handle doors, right? I mean, this gets complicated fast, right? So NPCs could move into doors. They're going to move through doors like they're invisible. But we have a function that makes this deer wander around, and let me make another variable here. I'm going to call it like deer timer, and I'll set it to 5. So this is maybe how often the deer moves. Maybe the deer moves every 5 turns. So now what I'm going to do is make an event. I'll call it like deer move event. And what I'll do is I'll subtract 1 from that timer. Was it deer move timer, or was it just deer timer? Oh, I never clicked the add button. There we go. Deer timer. Deer timer. All right. Deer timer minus minus. Subtract 1 from the deer timer. If deer timer is equal to 0, now it's time for the deer to move. So we're going to move the deer. How do we move the deer? We're going to call that function. We're going to use this function that we wrote over here, the deer wander function. So let's go back to our event, and we're going to say deer wander, and open parenthesis, close parenthesis, semicolon. That is the syntax for calling a function. So this means jump over to the deer wander function and run it. And maybe we want to print a line, like print a message here, you know, the deer is wandering. Now we probably also want to check like whether the deer is in the same room as the player. I don't know. But at least we're going to get a message that the deer has wandered away. And then once we do that, we want to set our timer back to 5. So countdown, did the timer hit 0? If it did, print the deer is wandering, make the deer wander to another adjacent room, and then reset the timer. And this is just going to keep going on and on and on. So maybe just to for the sake of just verifying that this works, temp room equals deer dot location. Print, no, I didn't want to print. Print the deer is now in, and then let's print the name of the room that the deer is in. Print name, temp room, print the name of that object, and then print line, period. Okay, so now we can at least see where the deer is. Let's run this and hope that it works. Okay, oh, hey, there's a deer here. Wait. Okay, now I'm going to type VARS here, VARS, and notice our deer timer is now 4. Wait. VARS, VARS, VARS. Now our deer timer is 3. VARS. Deer timer, we gotta wait again. Wait. VARS. Deer timer is 1. Okay, so when the deer timer hits 0, we're gonna move the deer and reset the timer. So let's type wait. The deer is wandering. The deer is now in forest 4. Okay, and wait. The deer is wandering. The deer is now in forest 2. So you can see that the deer is now wandering around. I'm not even sure how to get to forest 2. Where am I? East? North? It's kind of hard to tell. Okay, hey, there's the deer. Wait. The deer is now in forest 4. All right. So now the deer is wandering around. Now, what if we didn't want the deer to go in certain places? Like, what if, what if we move the deer? I mean, there's a bunch of ways to approach this. We could modify this function. This function is kind of hairy, and I would just kind of say leave it alone. But what we really need to do is kind of create some regions of our game. So if I go to the riverbank here, I'm going to check this box, user 1. These are bit flags that we can just use for our own purposes. And one of those purposes is to create regions. So we could have like an above ground region or a below ground region or something like that. So maybe we'll use user 1 here as an indicator that this is a place where the deer is not supposed to be. Now let's go to our move function. Notice we have a function called deer previous room, right? When we dropped in this code, Lantern created this variable for us. This says where the deer was before we moved it. So what we can do is, after the deer moves, we can say, hey, is the deer in one of these rooms where it's not supposed to be? And if it is, we can back it up and make it try again. So let's go back to our event here. And there's our deer wander function. Now let's say if deer, how do we get the deer's location? Okay, so we need a temporary variable. Temp room equals deer dot location. This is because we can't do deer dot location dot user 1. It just doesn't work that way. Temp room dot user 1. So this is a temporary variable that's storing the deer's location. We have a variable called temp room that got added for us. There it is. Temporary room equals the deer's location. If the temp room's user 1 bit is equal to 1, well, now the deer moved into a region it shouldn't be in. So let's say back the deer up. How do we do that? We're going to say the deer's location is now, was it deer, oh God, I got to go back. Look at the deer previous room. Semicolon. So now we've put the deer back in the previous room. And now here's a thing though. We've got to make sure that the deer timer doesn't go negative. Let's set it back to 1. Because then the next turn, the deer timer, we're going to subtract the deer timer and then we'll make the deer move again. Or you could set it to 5. It doesn't matter. But if you want the deer to keep trying over and over again to move, on the next turn, then set it to 1, because it'll 1 count down to 0. Now it's 0. Now it's time to try to make the deer move. Okay, and then let's put a message in here. Deer where it's not supposed to be. All right, and then we're going to back the deer up, and then we could say other. Now, if the deer is in a bad place, back the deer up. Otherwise, the deer must be in a good place. That's the only other option. So let's just take that code and we'll put it in here. So tab, 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 tab. Okay. So what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, if it's time for the deer, or subtract 1 from the timer. Okay, we've hit 0. Now we're going to make the deer move. Make the deer move. Now check where the deer is. Get the deer's location. Now check the user 1 bit on that. If it's set to 1, the deer is where it's not supposed to be. So we're going to back the deer up to its previous room and set the deer timer to 1. Then on the because that way on the next turn we'll subtract 1 from it. It'll be 0 again, and we'll kind of speed up the process of the deer moving. Otherwise, we're just going to pretend we're going to set the timer back to 5 and print out where the deer is. So let's try that. I'm going to put the deer, let's put the deer like in Riverbank 1 or something where it's not supposed to be. Or let's look at the map. Yeah, you know what we could do here? Let's put the deer in Forest 3 and then disconnect some of these rooms, and then that'll increase the likelihood of the deer ending up in the wrong location. So let's go back here. I'm going to save this. I got to go back to my map. Forest 3, that's the one we got to change. So let's put the deer in Forest 3, and I'm going to disconnect Forest 3 from those other rooms. So basically we got a 60% chance of the deer ending up on a riverbank. So let's try that. Wait, 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 wait. The deer is not where it's supposed to be. Okay, so let's type vars. Okay, so the deer timer got set back to 1. Now we're going to subtract 1 from it. Now the deer is going to move on the next turn, or it's going to try to. Wait. The deer is wandering. The deer is now in forest 4. Okay, wait. The deer is not where it's supposed to be. Okay, so if I go north, where was the? Oh, I don't know where I am. East. Okay, there it is. So the deer is now wandering around. But you could see that actually worked. Like we used these user bits to create regions of our game, and we detected when the NPC is in that room that we're not supposed to move. So let me see if I can get more of that code on the screen there. Let me compact this. There we go. So now we can at least get all that code in the frame. But that's the gist of it. And you can change the deer timer to whatever. But that's the whole thing. Really, what you want to do is use that snippet to create a function to move your object around, and then you have an event that's going to make that object move around. Like maybe the object, that NPC doesn't move around randomly all the time. Maybe there's times where it's asleep or something, or it's doing something else. So really, what we're doing is modeling by breaking our our code up into different functions. We can more easily model an object being in different states. So but there you go. There's how to get a deer to wander, or an NPC to wander around, but also stay within a certain region of the board. So I know that was a kind of complicated one. If you have any questions, just ask me or email me.